Hey everybody, this is Katie, and today I wanted to talk to two people in our community about equity. There was recently a motion made to the school board that the St. Tammany Parish schools adopt an equity policy. And when I heard about that, I realized I had no idea what an equity policy was or what it would look like, and I wasn't really very familiar with the term. So I reached out to some of the people that were behind this motion and behind this proposal to the school board, and I've got them here today to talk to us about what equity is, what equity looks like in schools, and things like that. So I have Jessica and Karen, and I'm just going to jump right into the questions. And my first question is, what is equity? Because that's not a term, and I've heard it now since I heard it at the school board meeting. I heard it somewhere else, and I was like, oh, okay, like this is a thing people are talking about. But yeah, I would just like to have like a nice explanation as to what exactly equity is. And either of you can start, whoever wants to.
Okay, well, I'll go first. Again, thank you for this opportunity to speak about the work that Jessica and I are doing with For the Good of Slidell, which is a Facebook group that was started to kind of address different issues in the community and what we could take action on. And so we formed the education action team, and that's what Jessica and I co-lead. And we've been working to encourage equity within our public school system. And so when you say equity, there are many definitions of equity. And the one that I found that makes it easy to understand is equity recognizes that the same for everyone, which is referred to as equality, does not truly address needs and therefore specific solutions and remedies, which may be different for different people, are necessary. And with that said, an equity policy acknowledges this and then specifies areas such as disabilities, discipline, and hiring practices that school systems should look at by engaging in data-driven practices to identify any barriers and eliminate patterns and practices that may create disparities. I think, most would agree that every student, teacher, and school system employee have a right to receive equitable treatment. And so that's how I look at it, and that's kind of how the policy is. And I'll turn it over to Jessica and let her give you her take on that.
Right. So to reiterate what Karen said, equity and looking at a school system through the lens of equity means that you're ensuring to the best of your ability that everybody within a community, and in this case, we're talking about the school community, has an opportunity to succeed and to thrive without barriers. So equity creates a level playing field. It takes nothing away from anybody, but it does ensure that everyone has equal opportunity and is as likely to succeed, because barriers that may be there for that person or population of people is removed or addressed. So in a school system, you could think of a school system as a body, and then a school is a body within that, and a classroom is a body within that, and special programming is a body within that. So it kind of goes from large to small, but you're looking at each one of these environments and you're making sure that nothing exists, whether it's whether it's a bias or a manner of practice or anything that would make it less likely for somebody to be successful. And that isn't, as Karen said, the same for everyone. The same for everyone is not always what everyone needs. So it's addressing individual needs within the community.
Okay, great. Now for my next question is, okay, so I can get that concept, like different people need different things. That makes sense to me. I get that. But what is that going to look like in our school system? You know, what are you suggesting it look like? Or what if you were to, you know, if we were to, if tomorrow all the schools were equitable, what would that look like? You know, what are you trying to, where are you trying to go, I guess, with your recommendations?
Okay.
So
You want to
I'm gonna
start,
let
Karen?
Jessica kind of break that part down because she is the educator. She is, many years of experience with that. From my perspective, I look at it before you get to, what it would look like. It's like, how do you get there? And so, in the spirit of transparency, I don't proclaim to be an expert on this subject, but what I will say, I'll speak from my own experience and research and how an equity policy can be implemented within the school system. So I'm going to take it from that perspective. So the way I see it going forward, of course, if everyone has been paying attention, we have been at the last two school board meetings trying to get them just to address, to discuss this issue. So that's been a challenge in itself, but it's worth it because we're getting there. We're making progress. And as of last week, we're going to be meeting with them to talk more about it and hopefully be ready to bring a policy to the school system, to the school board in October. So with that said, what we're asking is that the school board, what we're recommending, because again, they have to ultimately decide, is first pass a policy. So once you pass the policy, then we're saying, you should hire or appoint an equity officer who would have autonomy by reporting directly to the school board, just as the superintendent does. And then this person will be responsible for collecting the data on the specific areas identified in the policy. And then they would report regularly to the school board on their progress. So to start, he or she would form a team to include the relevant stakeholders such as students, parents, teachers, curriculum and instruction specialists, HR, etc. Whatever you need to get a diverse group of people so that you can create a strategic action plan after reviewing the data that was collected, and possibly even conducting interviews with people in the school system so you can better understand what the issues are. And then after the plan is developed and approved by the school board, then you would have that equity officer to work with HR and the curriculum and instruction principals and the others to execute the plan. So, everyone must understand that this effort will take time. It could take several years to implement. And then, especially when you try to look to, and improvements will actually be realized again, it just takes time because you want to do it right. You don't want to be rushed. You want to make sure that you're addressing the correct areas. And so in order to do that, we must start now by having the policy. So I'll let, like I say, Jessica talk more about, the school system because she was in it for so long and she could shed more light on what she how it would work.
So, and I'm coming from it as an educator, somebody who, like Karen said, somebody who's been within the system, and I'm a scholar of education policies. So I know, first of all, like Karen was saying, we have to get a policy in place which will open the door to the work and to getting to the goals, which I'm going to speak about. We have to understand that in order to even adopt a policy, we need to be able to discuss it, and we need to be able to acknowledge that it is important enough to formalize in policy. And once you have a policy in place, then you have to readdress it. It is ongoing work. It's not a once and done thing, because you're always going to look back and say, are we achieving what we're setting out to achieve? If we're not achieving it, what do we have to do to change our methods? But what I see it looking like in a school system, which is getting back to your original question, is that we carefully examine all the areas of a school system which can create even invisible inequities for our students and for our employees. And that means we're looking at areas of curriculum and instruction to make sure that that curriculum is reflective of the people that we serve. and that it doesn't dismiss any particular group of people. And that it's relevant to what our kids need to know moving forward into this new future that we have coming for them. We have to make sure that the delivery of that curriculum is done in a manner that is equitable. And that means that the people delivering the curriculum and the methods that that curriculum is delivered are reflective of the kids who have to consume it, all right? And we know from research that when we have a diverse population of learners, we need a diverse population of teachers to deliver that curriculum. It is more meaningful that way. It is more likely to be learned and retained and applied. So that will go into school and student success. We have to look at the hidden curriculum of a school. How does a school feel when you walk into it? Does it feel welcoming? Does it feel engaging? Is it clear that every child is valued and heard and seen? Okay, and every part of that child is valued and heard and seen. I know I've heard people say, I don't see color. Well, we have to see color. That's part of that child. That's part of that student. And it's integral. You know, they have to know we see them and we value them. All right. So we're looking at all of those areas and we're examining them to make sure that they are going forward in the ways that they need to go forward to ensure success for all. And we also need to make sure we're taking data so that we're not putting our stakeholders in conflict with personal issues and personal feelings. We're looking at data so that we can move forward correctly and we can set goals that are data driven. And that's where the equity policy officer or the equity officer would come into play.
So one thing that
go ahead.
I feel like both of y'all kind of maybe danced around it, but not said it explicitly, but it sounds to me like the absolute first step to an equity policy is the collection of data so that we can see the areas that don't have equity.
Well, we already know some areas that don't have equity, and that is hiring, that is sped populations, and discipline. We already have enough data to know some areas of need now, and that's all public data. Anybody can go look that up. So we know that whatever has been done to address that has not been terribly effective. So we need to figure out what we're going to do to build that. But there are also areas that we don't have data.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to identify areas that we should be collecting data. Mm-hmm. You know, and some areas maybe, you know, it's not a gotcha thing. It's a way to scientifically look at what we need to do better and make improvements for the kids we serve.
Mm-hmm. So we have a minimum right now, which is we know we're not meeting it in these couple of areas. And then there's probably other areas that have not been explored due to a lack of data. Is that correct?
I believe that.
Yeah, when you say minimum, I wasn't sure what you meant, but basically when we started this, we looked at we were doing two things. We did our research and we were looking at what is going on, what are other states doing to address equity. And so we did an extensive search to kind of see, what's out there. And we took all of that, and based on what we know, because our team has past and present teachers or administrators, and we have parents involved. It's a diverse team. So we had the input from multiple sources to come together with this policy. And so what we did was ensure that the research that we did aligned with that, because we wanted, we wanted to be able to show when we sat down with the interim superintendent and the school board president, we wanted to be able to show that we have already looked at data that we received from you through a records request and through the Louisiana Department of Education, which has tons of data for the schools. And we wanted to be able to show, hey, this would make you pause. I'm not saying what's the reasoning behind it, but it's worth looking at because there is some disparities based on looking at the data. And so again, that's one point, right? One data point, as some would say. So that means that you have to be able to look in other areas or dig deeper. And as I always say, peel back that onion to figure out why that data looks the way it looks.
Mhm.
And although the Department of Education they do their assessments and they have, and which actually on our For the Good page, we recently posted data that showed areas where they have deemed it urgent intervention, or they have these different terms about what areas you need to do more work on.
Mhm.
And so I put that out there so people could see. I mean, knowledge is power. And so you have to, as we were talking earlier before we started this, that if you don't do your own research and don't look into it, don't take our word for it. It's there. It's public knowledge. And then, but we're saying is some of the things that you may be doing to try to address them aren't the right ways to do it because it's not effective and it's not changing or bringing about equity for all the students. And it was funny when I looked at it because I hadn't looked at it in a while. I don't know if I had looked at the current data, but if you before this weekend and seeing it, disabilities is the number one area across the board. It named school by school that has disabilities, that requires disabilities intervention. So that means that they are not doing something correctly.
Mhm.
And so we're saying, let's look at that. Let's see what you're doing, because we need to address that.
Okay, so my final question for you guys, I know I ad-libbed a little bit on you, but my last question is how does equity benefit the kids? Because really, in my mind, there's no reason to go to a lot of trouble for something that's maybe just like, a gold star or a sticker or something. I want to know, how is this going to help my kids, or how is this going to help my neighbor's kids, or how is this going to help the kids down the street? So that, I think, is something that people are going to want to know. Karen, you want to start?
So, I mean, I guess I'll start. Yeah. I'm gonna go, because it kind of leads into what I was just talking about, and I guess, simply said, it allows for all students, no matter their race, disability, social identity, etc., the opportunity for success. And as I mentioned earlier, we have to peel back that young onion with the hope that we can identify the root cause of why things are the way they are. And if it's feasible, we need to address it. And so to give you an example of from our research, and like we said, the data is out there, public knowledge, the discipline data of St. Tammany Parish. It shows that Black students are 2.7 times more likely to have in and out of school suspension versus white students. And so the question is, why is that? We make all of these generalities about why that's so, but let's peel back that onion to see if there are reasons that can be fixed, because there may be issues that we can't. But, the easy answer that I'm seeing from talking from, teachers that are no longer in the system or that's retired or even some that's currently in there, the quick solution is that they're labeled and they're put in special ed, or they're labeled as disabled, or disabilities has a range of categories in it. And so that's not always the answer, and parents have even told me that their kids have been labeled as a discipline problem and, treated as such. And they had to fight to get, the recognition that their child is not that. And on several occasions, the child was discovered to be gifted. And so, again, it just, maybe have said that they were bored in the class. And so they were acting out, versus, hey, this kid is really sharp. So it goes to that whole thing about, biases. We all have biases, right? And so it may be that if you dig deep enough, you might realize that the teacher just didn't see that that child, she couldn't see through it, or he couldn't see through it because they were acting bad. You couldn't get to the part of seeing that they were exceptional.
Mhm.
And another example of that is if you listen back, the very first, when we went to the school board meeting on August 13th, one of the pastors who spoke, he substituted for 10 years. And so during that time, he actually got to substitute for like a semester at a junior high school here in St. Tammany. And he recognized that 3 kids in that class, 3 Black students, that they were exceptional. And so he contacted the parent and said, hey, you need to get them tested. You need to, check this out because they're really, high performers. And they did. And those 3 kids were considered gifted. And so for me, where my concern came in when I heard that is that they are in junior high. Gifted is not something that you learn. You're born gifted. So they had a missed opportunity all through elementary school, up through, say, 6th grade, that they could have been challenged more, could have really explored and been even better students if they were put in gifted early on. But, it wasn't too late. It's never too late, but it is a missed opportunity. And so that's one of the things that I think we have to, we talk about the hiring, and we talk about, the data shows that, there's only about 6% Black teachers in the entire parish, but you have about 20% Black students in the parish. And so, the thing has been that you can't hire, they can't find the teachers. They can't find Black teachers. Okay, let's say that's true. And so now, how do you train your white teachers to be able to understand all kids? So to know that they look at each child with the right lens to be able to identify their differences. So they have to be able to want to learn how to do that, and because I don't want to, I mean, I'm a Christian, and I want to see the good in everybody. So I want to give people an opportunity to do the right thing. I don't want to automatically assume that you're this or that. I don't want to label you as such. Because again, I realize that we all have biases, and we have to just learn how to work with them. And I think when you bring out the awareness that you have them, and when you identify them, then that's like an opportunity for you to say, oh, wow, let me step back a minute and look at it, from a different angle. And that's how you begin to affect change, positive change, when we do that. And that's what this is all about, and it may be some other thing, but we just need to take a look, because we all, want all children to be successful, and there's no one size that fit all. So I'm gonna let Jessica jump in, because I think I've said a lot. So
No, but you were going right into a piece of the policy that we didn't discuss, or the proposed policy, because all we offered was a proposed policy. It's a draft, and we understand that if the school board decides that they want to adopt it, they're going to make it fit their needs, and they may know things that we don't know that they may want to include. But part of what we both believe, and the community that we've been working with believes, that is very important, is professional development. And that's what Karen was talking about. We are not here to point fingers or villainize anyone. Teachers, and I know I'm a teacher, I'm married to an educator, we work really hard, and we want every child in our classroom and in our schools to be successful. But you can't ever have too much professional development on how to meet the needs of your community. And being white doesn't automatically make me able to meet the needs of everybody, any more than being Black would automatically make me be able to meet everyone's needs. But professional development with a lens of equity from experts who understand this and who have studied it can help us all to better address the needs of our children. And especially now when we have families under some some stresses that they've never had to deal with before, with COVID and this presidential election we have coming up that is going to generate conversations in our schools.
Mm-hmm.
You know, children don't lose their rights of free speech when they walk into a school. And so our educators need to have training so that they can facilitate these conversations to help promote democracy and equity within our schools and honor everybody's voice. And we can all benefit from that. And when children feel listened, when they feel like they've been listened to and they are seen and their voices have value, they are less likely to engage in disciplinary problems. They're less likely to feel like they don't have value. They're more likely to stay in school, and they're more likely to pay attention and to find meaning in it. So equity benefits everyone.
Okay, great. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate this. I appreciate you taking time to talk to me today.